My name is Trevor Paglen, and I'm an artist, and I'm here at the invitation of the MIT's List Center and the Visiting Artist Program. My particular interest here at MIT is developing very archival materials, trying to think about how can we encode information into substances or materials that can last for very long periods of time. How do we as humans who experience the world in minutes, hours, days, years, or a lifetime interface with a planet that exists on millions of years, billions of years? These intersections between deep time and human time are very compelling to me and very interesting to think about. I think they're also quite relevant at this particular historical moment when, as a society, we're confronting things like global warming or how to store nuclear waste. And so I'm here at MIT working with materials engineers and scientists, with Brian Wardle and with Carl Berggren, who does quantum and nanofabrication work. And together we're trying to solve this problem of what materials can we use that last on these, you know, really alien timescales. And furthermore, how can we encode information into these materials? How can we create almost like these postcards for the future or messages in the bottle that instead of moving out into the oceans, move out into time? And this is the kind of project that is really only possible at a research institution like MIT. What artists do and what scientists do seem to be very different. When we imagine an artist, we perhaps imagine someone like Picasso or Jackson Pollock throwing paint around the studio and doing things that seem utterly incomprehensible to our everyday lives and being very strange people. And we imagine scientists being very rational people and being very good at mathematics, which seems to be the opposite of what art is. Ultimately, art is trying to see things that other people don't see. And if you think about it that way, that's not a whole lot different, perhaps, than what good scientists do. What good scientists do, again, are trying to understand how does the world work? How is it possible to know about things? Can we develop methods that we can use to see things that other people haven't seen before? Thinking about the future is a very difficult thing to do. We have a hard time knowing what we'll be doing in 10 years. We have a really hard time perhaps knowing what the world is going to look like or what our lives are going to be like in 20 or 30 years. However, as a society, we've put, Earth processes in motion that unfold over tens of years or hundreds of years. And I think this is something perhaps that art can contribute to this overall question of the future and the changing environments. Is it can perhaps help us to try to imagine how to think in that kind of time, or think about who we are in relation to these to Earth processes that fold out on timescales that are very different than what we experience every day. Human perception has changed enormously when you think about it. We've had like everything like in the 19th century. You have photography and invention of telephones and telegrams and the railroads, was radically changing our notion of what things look like, our relation to time, our relation to motion, our relation to space. Right now, we can use things like the Hubble telescope to see to the furthest reaches of the universe, and at the same time use electron microscopes or even weirder kinds of equipment that I quite honestly don't understand to like literally see atoms. I think a lot of artists understand that there's something very dramatic going on in terms of the way that we understand what the world is and how we see the world. When I went to Carl Bergen's lab the other day, he was talking to me about the fact that there was really a huge amount of graffiti at the nano scale that you really had to have the right machine to be able to see what it was. So that was a fun thing to learn about. What I wanted to do was to use some of these machines that are used for making very small electrical or computer structures and repurpose them for making artwork. And Carl was pointing out that, on the slide, people had already been starting to do that for fun, but, perhaps we could really develop something more robust and a little bit more serious, perhaps, out of that. MIT's Visiting Artist Residency program seems very unique to me in the sense that it puts artists in collaboration with and in contact with some of the leading science and technology thinkers and researchers in the world, and does it actually in a very productive way where I think that there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration, for mutual inspiration, and for mutual respect and sharing that doesn't happen a lot in society or in across different fields in the way that that it does here. So I think that's a very special thing.